you can see Streamlabs, because today is... Pardon me while I get all of the sugar off of me from the ensaymada I had this morning. Man, those things just like, they're just like jizz sugar everywhere. So today, we are going to take a look at the AI generator that I made a couple of weeks ago. I've been kicking around in my head sort of what to do with this, right? Because it works well enough right now, right? Like, it works well enough, I could just add to it and job done, right? So, like, generate behavior, it generates behavior. It does a good enough job, right? But I think we can revise this and make it even cooler with a little bit of planning and a little bit of design. So I figured that's what we'd work on today. I'll be super honest, I'm a little low energy. I don't know if I have playing a game on stream in me today. This stream's probably going to kick my ass as it is. But this is a little bit easier than playing a game. So, woo, mental illness. But I still want to do something. So, I figured we would work on designing this, like, 2.0 version of this AI generator here. I figured that's what we would do today. That's a little bit easier than playing a game. So, I figured we would take a look at it. Alright. I will have to keep bouncing back and forth to check chat because I only have like the one monitor set up. You know, this is my like streaming laptop that I stream off of. So I have to bounce back and forth. So I apologize for that. Sometimes if you guys get like flashes of that, it's me checking chat. All right. Wow, the brightness. No. All right. Let's pop over to our buddy Notepad. So this is the code for that AI generator that we made, right? We did this all together a couple of weeks ago. But we want to make a 2.0 version of it. So the first thing we need to do is we need to outline sort of like what is our ultimate goal here, right? What is the best version of this, and how do we get as close to it as possible? So to do that, let's outline looking for words. We're going to outline like the penultimate version, I guess. So, okay. The best AI generator, in my opinion, is card deck. With the card deck, you flip a card. It has an action on it. During their turn. Alright? So, I'm going to have a deck of cards. It's, I don't know, this Tyrannid's turn, right? I flip the card. It tells me to do something. The Tyrannid, I do something with the Tyrannid. So what are the really big pros here, right? The big pros here are this is simple. We don't know what will happen beforehand. And it's fast, right? It's super fast. I literally don't have to put thought in. If this card gives me one action, I don't have to put thought into what that action does. I can just do it, right? So in my opinion, the penultimate AI generator is the one the one from this. It's the one from Doomsday Countdown. In this, you get a deck of cards. You flip it, and you just do what it says. It's nice. It's easy. It's fast. And it's good. Like, it's a wonderful, wonderful system. And it works really well. However, it does start to break down at some point. So it's got some cons. The problem is the actions have to be simple and unique. So, you can't really give I guess we can make that its own line because it's so big. The actions have to be simple and unique. The action on that card pretty much has to only have one thing on it. It has to tell me to fight twice, to move and fight, to move, to try to shoot. Like, right? It's gotta be super, super simple. To fit on the card, and two, to not interrupt the flow. And the big benefit of the card deck, which is how fast and simple it is. So if I was to flip a card over and it had like several paragraphs of text on it, that defeats the entire purpose of the card system, right? Like if I had to sit there and read it like it's some super like, I don't know, dense rule from 40k or something, the entire value of the card deck is now gone, right? So the rules have to be simple, and they have to be simple to benefit that pro. They also have to be unique. This is to mean that, like, if I have, let's say this guy, right? This Tyranid right here, he's a shooting unit, right? But he's also a melee unit. So according to one-page rules, this guy would be referred to as a hybrid unit. This guy has no shooting weapon. This guy is a melee unit. If I flip a card that says shoot, this guy's basically shit out of luck. There's nothing he can do now. And then you start falling into the issue of having conditionals on the card. So it'd be like, shoot if can, if can't, move. Right? And then you, again, return to not being simple anymore. Right? That's the point I wrote there and didn't read it out loud. You can't have multiple actions on a card without making it too complex. It also can account for multiple unit types. I'm adding very little setup as a pro for later, because that's one of the problems we're going to run into later. Can't account for multiple unit types. It just if you put multiple actions on that card, it again gets super complex. This is one of the problems that my that's paint. Oop. This is one of the problems that my AI generator has. When you come here to generate an action, you have to come here every time and click generate, right? So if it's this guy's turn, you need to generate an action. If it's this guy's turn, you need to generate an action, right? Every time you need to come here and generate an action. And when you do, it gives you three options, right? This was my concept for getting around the issue that the actions on the cards need to be unique. And that the card cannot account for multiple unit types. I do like these three types of units. I like this concept from one-page rules. I do like this breakdown. That's one of the reasons I continue to use it here. However, cramming this all on a little card is going to make it a real pain in the ass, and just basically make it not work, right? In my opinion, I think this is too complex here already. But we'll get to that. Alrighty. Sorry for all the flipping around. That's the nature of just... Like, my setup is really set up for painting and for playing games. It's not really set up for, like, coding and design and stuff. I just sort of do these kind of because they're fun. Alright. Alright, so that's the card deck, right? AI Generator 1.0. Okay, this is what we're going to call this guy right here. That's what we're going to call this guy right here. This is going to be AI Generator 1.0. Click the button for each unit. Do action for that unit type. Alright, that's how she works. Let's do some pros. Let's do some cons. And after this, we're going to do AI Generator 2.0. We're going to talk about some options for how this is going to work. Alright, pros. This is also very fast and simple. You basically just do one interaction. There's also very little setup. We also don't know what'll happen beforehand, right? Let's see, we don't know what'll happen beforehand. You don't know what the generator is going to give you, right? So, set the same pros as the card deck. This is because I based the AI generator off the card deck. Because in my brain, the card deck is the penultimate AI generator, right? The problem is that it's really not. But that's what we're here for 2.0. There's very little setup for it. We don't know what'll happen beforehand, right? We have that fog of war. We want that fog of war. We don't want people to be sitting there like, oh, this AI is going to do that. So since I already know what they're going to do, I can do this to counter it and get that advantage. I don't want players to be doing that. I think that's pretty toxic. Not like players, you're bad, you shouldn't do that. But I think it results in a negative play experience for them, right? I think people would much rather have that, like, some little amount of surprise to what their enemy is going to do. I think if you don't give them that fog of war, they're going to do this just by default, right? Like anybody would do this. However, I think it results in a negative play experience for them, and like it's cultivating a toxic behavior in the player without realizing it. Trying to like predict and like manipulate what they're going to do and stuff. I don't think most players would enjoy that. Maybe some would. I think more people would be like, oh shit, that guy's charging twice, or ha, that fucker ran out of ammo, right? Like, I think that's probably more fun for the player, right? So I think that fog of war is important. Ironically, it's one of the things that I don't know if I can maintain in the AI Generator 2.0. But we'll get to that. Alright, cons. The actions can be too complex. I'll admit this flat out right now with how it works. Some of the actions in this generator are too complex, right? They are complex enough that you have to do multiple logical steps and it pulls you out of the game. I don't think that's good for a fun AI system, right? Because if you're playing your dudes, right, you're like, oh yeah, you know, shooting the Tyranids, and you have to like stop. You have to go, okay, well the Tyranid's going to do this. Oh wait, no he's not, because he's actually this instead. And then, oh, he has to roll randomly. Now he's turning around. He's going this way, and then he's moving like this, and like, right, like you just want to be like, I'm shooting the Tyranids. Oh no, the Tyranids coming. You know what I mean? You don't want to like wind up in this situation where you have to do all of this complex thinking and complex logic for your enemy. You just want your enemy to do their thing. And then you want to be like, okay, well they did this, so if I do this and I do that and I do this and I do that. Because if you wanted to put complex thought into what the enemy was going to do, you would just play both sides. Like just flat out, you would just play both sides, right? Like 100%. That's what you would do. You would just be like, okay, well I've got my Tyranid team and I've got my Nurgle team and they're going to fight. You know what I mean? And you would just be like, oh, okay, so this guy's moving here, but okay, so I'm going to move him there, and then he's going to turn, he's going to shoot. He got me. You know what I mean? If you wanted to do that, if you wanted to put the thought into it, you would just play both sides. That's what you would do. The benefit of the generator is that these are random, right? Or these are AI. You don't have to play both sides. It gives you a little bit more of a video game-like experience, and it gives you more of a like actual player experience, right? Because you don't know what your opponent's going to do, unless you're like some super tactician man, right? So, with that, the actions can be too complex, right? There are multiple conditions on some actions or logical steps. This is that problem that we just talked about. The other con is have to click for each action. So if I'm playing Grimdark Firefight and I have a team of 10 guys on one side and 10 guys on the other, I need to come here 10 times and click Generate Action. So I get to do my guy's action, come here, generate an action. 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 Right? My guy's action, come here, generate an action. I need to come back to the generator every time. Now, the nice thing about this is that this can maintain that fog of war, right? Right? We'll mark this out here. Fog of war. This can maintain that, right? Because it's hidden otherwise, which is pretty fucking sweet. However, if I only have 3 guys on this team and 5 guys on the AI team, I now have 2 actions that I need to do in rapid succession, right? So there are multiple actions there that I need to do. You know, so I'll be like, okay, click an action, do the guy. Click an action, do the guy, right? Versus these guys where it's just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? So I now run into a situation where it's like, okay, I have to do this one, I have to do this one, I have to do this one, okay? This was an issue a lot in the last game, you know, because I only, for a team of 150 points, I can only really take like 2 of these Space Marine guys, right? Because they're kitted out to the fucking 9s. So, because my leader was like 120 points or something insane, you know, because he was just a boss, and he was, I mean, he soloed the entire orc team, so very fitting for a Space Marine, but, like, super thematic and great, but, you know, I ran into a situation where that, meant that I just had a lot of enemies, right? Like, I had 7 enemies on the other side, so there's points where it's like, okay, I have to do 3, I have to do 3, I have to do 3, like that, and it sucked. Right? So I have to click for each action. That's that point right there. Right? Now, these are the write-ups for how they work, right? So this is my initial thought of what the penultimate AI generator is, right? And then this is my initial AI generator 1 based off of that card deck, right? This is essentially flipping a card. It's what this is, right? Flipping a card, it pulls, it pulls out of its own essential card deck here, right? This is essentially a D6 card deck. Right? And then this is the event generator. Yeah, it's much bigger. It's D12. But it's pulling an event out of the D6 card deck every time, right? It's flipping that card. Now, AI Generator 2.0. So, honest, realistic appraisal. This works pretty fucking good. AI Generator 1.0 works pretty fucking good. It does a good job. It does what it says on the tin. It gives me those unit actions every time. It gives me something customizable, right? Because we built in, eventually there's going to be the ability to have different enemy types that will behave differently, right? It gave me that. It has very little setup, which is really nice. What else can we add to it, though, right? So, when I was playing with myself, I had to come up with a rule of thumb for who to activate next, right? And because of that, I had to predict it, right? I could predict who to activate, right? Right? I had to predict that, or I could predict that. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna activate the unit to the leftmost first. Every time, right? Ow. Also, my generator right now, there's no way to call out a special unit. Okay? So, say I'm fighting the Tyranids, right? And say majority of my team is these little guys right here. There is no way to call out an action for these little guys that is different from this big guy, right? Right? Like, this guy's a special unit, right? Like, if I was to throw people against him, it would be a big deal, right? Like, he would be a boss character of some kind. These guys, not so much, right? This guy, like, because he's a boss, I might want him to do, like, special fancy shit, right? I might want him to, like, I don't know, get extra actions or do special abilities or something. You know what I mean? This guy, he can't really do that, right? Like, I don't want this guy to be, like, cast Mind Lightning Bolt. You know what I mean? Right? But if this guy could do that, that would be really cool. It would make him feel unique instead of just being like part of a horde that is doing like the lowest common denominator actions. Right? So there's no way to have a special unit in this rule set, or in my generator right now. Sorry for using the Tyranids all the time, but they're on my desk, so. Still trying to figure out how I'm going to paint them. Still trying to figure it out. I did consider them painted, and then I've had several people ask me how I'm going to paint them, which I guess means I need to paint them some more. Oh, that's neither here nor there. Alright, so there's no way to call out special units. We don't have a way right now in the generator to know who to activate, right? Next up, what other additional features would make this thing cool? I'm going to be super honest. I would like to completely get rid of conditionals. That's something that I would like to do. I think the conditionals pull people out of the flow of the game, of playing by yourself, right? I think that's the benefit of this card deck or the card deck in that Doomsday Protocol box, is there are no conditionals in it. But that's because the units are so simple, right? Like, all they can do is move and shoot, essentially. So there are no conditionals in those units, in that card deck, right? When you start playing against more complex units, you need to have them, right? So one of my goals for this would be to get rid of those potential units. I'm sorry, to get rid of those potential conditionals, right? I want to give you an action, and that is the action the unit does without you having to put too much thought into it, right? Because that, in my opinion, is the big benefit of this, is that it goes quickly, and you can think about it quickly, right? My generator here is copying the behavior exactly, and it's trying to copy the spirit, but it's not exactly getting it because of those conditionals. I feel like they do interrupt the spirit of this card deck more than, like, the law of the card, or, like, you know, the intent of the card deck, I guess. Alright? So I'd like to get rid of those conditionals. Alright. So those are some of the big features, and we can come up with other ones as we go. But let me start drawing out in paint, beautiful, some of the ideas for an alternate system, right? Let me get in that. All right, here we go. Paint. It's so fucking bright. Why? Okay. All right. Oh, rubber job with that big. All right. Where's the stupid paint bucket nowadays? Oh, there it is. Yeah, there we go. It's better. Okay. So, what I'm thinking for 2.0 is that we're going to have a space, right? That's this right here. We're going to have this space. And it is going to fill up with cards. Right? It's going to fill up with cards per unit. Like that. So if I had like a 6-person team, there'd be 6 cards here. There will be a button to add them, to add more cards to this, right? And then each one's going to have a name. Each one's going to have a type of unit. A type. And then I'm going to need a button for if it's dead. So we'll do that down here. It won't actually look like this, but You get the idea. We're just trying to put in ideas. Alright, so the name, right? This is going to be user entered, right? Allows a user to differentiate what card is what. So, for example, I can go ahead and I can say this card is big Tyranid warrior with gun, right? Like, I would be able to name that, right? Like, if I had a special name for this guy, I'd call him like Mr. Shiny Claws or something, right? Something so I know it's this guy, right? Or this swarm of guys, or like something like that. Like something in my brain where I could associate this card with that guy. This idea comes from, I was watching a Grimdark Firefight playthrough, and they were using a deck of cards to represent their units for activation. So they would pull a card from the deck, and it would have a number assigned to it, and then they would activate that numbered unit, right? The problem with that is that even in the Let's Play, they were having trouble remembering which number went to what unit. However, if you assign them a player given name, like, you know, you always know this is Mr. Shiny Claws, right? You're like, oh, okay, Mr. Shiny Claws goes first, right? Something like that, right? Or this is Mr. Shiny Claws' card, right? You know that automatically. The downside with that is the fact that the user has to enter these. Now, I am under a hypothesis that users do not mind game setup. What am I saying about that? So, I was a game developer for a couple of years for online games and mobile games and stuff like that. There is a concept called the cycle of abuse. So it is a big circle like this. And this verbiage is probably going to seem really bad, but this is... There are multiple people who have rebranded this other things like the gameplay cycle and blah blah blah, but it is in a clinical setting referred to as the cycle of abuse. We have abuse, right? You do the thing, right? Whatever it is, right? You buy the toy, you, I don't know, jerk off, you eat a donut, right? You do some kind of action, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be abuse, but you do some kind of action, right? You have some kind of engagement that you're doing, right? Now, you feel good because you did the thing, right? Whatever it is. You're like, oh man, that donut was delicious. It was so fucking good. I loved eating that donut. It was fantastic. Donut all day. Alright? Now, after you did the thing, with the cycle of abuse, there is some aspect of having anxiety because you did the thing, right? So it's like, man, that donut was really good, but I shouldn't have eaten it. It's a lot of calories, right? Like, I really should be watching my weight and stuff, and that's a lot of sugar, so watch my sugar too, right? That's really bad. You have some amount of anxiety because you did the thing, right? But it comes after that high of doing the thing. Now, Now, this anxiety it only lasts for so long, right? Like, you're not going to beat yourself up because you ate that donut every day, right? You're just not going to do that. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a desire to eat a donut again, right? You're going to be like, man, you know what? Tomorrow I could go in a little late. I could stop and I could get the office donuts, right? Like, yeah, I could do that. And then, I could have a donut too. Oh, and that other donut I had, that donut was so good. You know what I mean? You start to have this anticipation of doing the thing again, right? So you get into this loop where you do a thing, you feel good about it, you feel bad about it, you have anticipation to do it again, right? Now, this, as far as gameplay goes, as far as gaming goes, if you're not talking cash shops, which, by the way, a lot of what I used to do in gaming had to do with cash shops and gambling, if you're not talking that, this part of it here doesn't really come into play, right? It doesn't. So what you end up doing is you have the action, you feel good about the action, and then you anticipate doing it again, right? You don't have that anxiety step, or you have that anxiety step and it's so small it's not even worth mentioning, right? Like say you play Warhammer, you're like, yeah, I had a great day playing Warhammer. You're like, oh, but I sure hung out with my wife, but it's okay, she was watching her dramas, that's all right, no problem, and then you start thinking about it. It's like, man, next weekend, yeah, I could play some Age of Sigmar again. That sounds really good. You know what I mean? You start to have that anticipation about it. So the prep for a game, right? Gaming prep falls into this. It falls into the anticipation about doing a thing. You look forward to the action. So you do the things around the action because they feel good, right? So coming in here and making cards for a user with little names and stuff, I think that's an action that users wouldn't mind because it falls into this category of anticipation to do the thing, right? It falls into that category, right? That is here, right? You know what else is here? Writing lists. Reading rule books, reading lore, painting your models, buying your models, reading about what models come out next, talking to your friends about models, going to the forums to read about rules changes, reading FAQs, like, so much of the hobby, as far as miniature wargaming goes, exists in this bubble. It exists here. This is majority of wargaming. This is where it is. It is that edging period, right? That is what this is, right? This is the, this is like the prep, okay? This is like, that anticipation part of it, right? I could go into an entire rant about hedonism, and how hedonism actually is the expansion of this anticipation phase, and it's not actually the abuse phase, which everyone thinks it is. But that's a whole nother rant. It's a whole thing. But, because if you abuse just too much, you end up hitting something called saturation, where you don't get the same result from abusing anymore or doing the action anymore, right? You just don't get the same result anymore, so you need to start seeking out other things to make it just as appealing. Whereas you can essentially exist in this anticipation phase for damn near ever. The one problem is that occasionally you do have to actually do the thing, or the anticipation is not as exciting anymore, right? It has to lead to doing the action. But I'm completely off. I'm actually not off topic. I'm actually really on topic. But it's a big rabbit hole, right? I would argue that at the start of COVID was the start of this big anticipation cycle for a lot of users getting back into wargaming, specifically 40K. But then COVID has lasted so long that a lot of people are still really not getting to play. So basically they didn't get the payoff for that anticipation, right? So a lot of them are leaving the hobby because of that. Because they didn't get that end result, right? They didn't get the end of that edging. They just got to do the thing, and they're like, okay, well, you know, I never actually got to play with my buddy Tim, and we both made armies, and, you know, it kind of sucks, right? Or even worse, because 40K, which is what most of the people coming back into the wargaming hobby were playing, is so fucking complex that they anticipated, and then didn't get their payoff because the game is too complex. They didn't have the fun with it like they thought they would. They built it up too much from this extended anticipation cycle. But that's a whole nother kettle of fish. So, we have this little cycle of abuse here. So my concept here is that if I can come here and if I can name these cards, that's not an action that users will not enjoy. I think it's something that users will enjoy. So the fact that that's a little bit of pregame prep, I don't think is bad, right? I don't think that's necessarily bad. Okay. Then we also have the type. What do I mean with this? Well, with type, I mean, with type, I mean melee, shooting, or hybrid. Again, this is not the anticipation setup part of it, right? Like, they're going to need to select this when they add a unit. That's perfectly fine, right? Perfectly fine. They're going to need to select that when they add a unit. That's fine. But this is going to allow us to get rid of this, right? To get rid of this. Is it a shooting unit? Is it a melee unit? Is it a hybrid unit? To get rid of that logic piece, we can ask the users ahead of time. Okay, we can ask them when they make this card what kind of unit it is. So that way when I assign an action to this, what's going to happen is it's just going to show the action related to that type of unit. It's not going to show you the big conditional like user tree. Okay. Now, the benefit of doing a card display like this is that generate action. Alright, I'm going to have my button just like I have right here, right? Generate behavior. I'm going to have that same button right here, right? Or it might be somewhere else in the display, but you get the idea. I'm going to have a big button that's going to generate actions. Now, what is this button going to do? This button is going to generate an action here, 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 and here. It's going to generate an action for every unit. It is also going to arrange these units in a logical order. So if this guy's going first, he's going to be first. This guy's going second, he's going to go there. This guy's going third, he's going to go there, right? It's going to reposition them in the display based on their activation order. It's what it's going to do. So this will get rid of the conditionals from the display, right? So all you're going to have to do is be like, okay, well, that one's Mr. Shiny Claws. Mr. Shiny Claws charges forward and fights. Cool. Good. All right. Let's rock and roll. It is going to do that. It's also going to give you an activation order for when they activate. So Mr. Shiny Claws goes first. Mr. Big Bug goes second. Something else goes third, like that. It's going to give you that action. Okay? Or it's going to give you that like list, right? So if you ever see sometimes video game UIs, right? Like, say this is video game UI. If you're playing something like Divinity Original Sin, you'll have little blocks up here, right? Right? Like this, right? And they'll have a portrait in them. Okay, so like, this one, that one's, smiley face. This one is, dog nose, right? They'll have little portraits in them, right? And what they're doing is from this point over here, they're saying this guy's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And as they activate, they disappear. Like that. And that is how you dictate a turn in a lot of these video games. I want to take that same idea here and starting from left top to, right bottom, I want to do that same kind of activation line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that, moving down the line. This is going to keep you from being able to guess what every unit's going to do, right? So there's a couple levels of obfuscation there, and it's important to mention. The one-page rules AI right now, they are a global rule that applies to every unit of that type, and it dictates through a logic tree how every one of that type is going to work. This means you can predict it because you can learn the logic tree. With this, I'm giving you a random behavior and a random position. However, to do this, I am giving up the fog of war. And I have, without asking the users to click every unit, I don't know how to maintain the fog of war and add these extra benefits. Now, what I can do, which is something I can do, is I can add a toggle up here for fog of war. And this is going to be basically extra work for the people that want it. So when you click generate action, it's going to generate an action for each one of these, but only some of them, only the current one's going to be visible, right? So only this guy's visible. Then when you come here and you click on this, the second guy, he becomes visible. When you click on the third guy, he becomes visible. Fourth guy, fifth guy, sixth guy. So this is more akin to my AI generator, how it works right now, where you need to make a click every time to maintain that fog of war. But it's going to allow us to have, like, also so, sorry. Words are becoming hard as I run out of energy. I did not realize how low energy I am. I apologize. It's going to allow us, with the fog of war toggle, to maintain the fog of war. But it's asking users to come and perform an extra action. But, like I said, we can give them the option of performing the action or not. Now, the reason I don't think removing the fog of war by default is an issue is because there is enough level of obfuscation that it will make predicting hard. So each one of these, right, they're going to be in a new order. They're going to be using certain enemy types, and they're going to be using certain actions, right? So, we're talking about multiple levels of obfuscation, which I think is going to keep your brain from making that jump, which is one of the problems with the AI conditional generators, like what OPR has right now, is that your brain can learn that rubric for it in one game, and it makes it super quick for you to predict. This is 3 steps for your brain to do, and I think that's probably good as far as obfuscation goes. But, like I said, if the fog of war is super important, we can add a button to enable it and disable it. So there's options there. With this setup, there are a couple of things that this will need to have for users to be happy. In addition to that, you're going to have a button to mark a unit as dead. So I'm going to need to show you dead units somewhere, right? Dead units. So I'm going to need to show you that somewhere, right? You don't need to see the whole card anymore. You can just see part of it, like maybe the name, something like that. Can go in the dead units box. Let's see what else. Oh, you're going to need the ability to export this. Unfortunately, you are. Export. Because if people are going to put effort in ahead of time, naming all their units and everything, they're going to want to be able to save it off, right? They might want to do this, I don't know, a week ahead of time before they come here and run the game, right? Or they might be playing with somebody else and they're like, oh, fuck, I don't have all this stuff. And they're like, okay, I can send you the string for the units, right? So there is going to need to be some kind of export/import for this, because users will just want that. Just flat out, it's something they're going to want, and it's going to enable them to do this early, right? So they don't have to do it right before they play game, because right before you're playing game is the time that we do not want to add extra work. We want to allow users to do this beforehand, right? In that anticipation phase, not during the abuse phase. Okay. So, toggle for Fog of War. Export and import. We're going to need those features. Don't super know how to do that, so I'll have to look that up. But we can figure it out. Also, this is going to allow us to mark these as special units. Okay? So, I can put checkboxes here. Right? And we can mark these as special units that will unlock special actions. So we could have special units for, say, the leader, maybe a psyker, and maybe like a behemoth, right? Something really big. You know what I mean? There's probably others, but we'll probably just do leader first off, so your leader will get some special actions, but something like that is what we'll do first. Yeah, we can have those toggles there for the different user types, right? And now, because you can be a leader and a psyker, these do need to be independent checkboxes. Because what they're going to do is they're probably going to inject options into the logic tree. Is what that's probably how that's probably going to work. Okay. All right. So, generating AI Generator 2.0 This is my thought for it, right? We have a thing that you click to add a unit, and it places a card with a type and name. Boom. It's good for every unit. Boom, 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 boom. And then you're going to be able to export and import this as well. So you can do this ahead of time because we don't want to add time to when people are playing the game. Then you're going to have a button to generate an action. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to take every unit type and generate them an action. Everybody gets an action, right? Every unit in the enemy side gets an action. This means that when you're playing the game, if it's a 5-round game, you need to only come here 5 times, right? You don't now need to come here, 25 times when you have a team of 5 guys over 5 turns. Okay, you only need to come here 5 times versus 25. A lot less back and forth, a lot less pulling you out of the game. Because you could have this just up on your phone. Okay, this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, right? Nice and easy. We also want the ability to have Fog of War if we want it. Like if you find yourself predicting these and not enjoying that experience, you can have Fog of War. Alright. Next, we need the ability to mark these units as dead. So they are removed from the activation queue when they are dead. So, if one of your guys dies, he's not going to show up like he has an action every time. And then we also need to show a list of where the dead units are, right? So we need to show a shortened card down in the dead unit area. Just because we don't want users to... We don't want users to have to, I don't know. We don't want to, just make the cards disappear into the ether when you click dead. I think it's important to have some kind of visual feedback for the user there. I personally think that's important. Okay. Alright, so AI Generator 2.0, right? So what do? We walk through AI Generator, we walk through the card system, we walk through AI Generator 1.0, and now we are in AI Generator 2.0, and then we did some doodling for what I think it should look like and what I think the additional features are. So this would be adding in all these additional features we talked about. Showing an activation order, the ability to account for multiple types, and getting rid of all the conditionals. When you look at every single card, you're just going to have one action. It's going to be like move and shoot, right? Move into cover and shoot, right? Move towards closest enemy and shoot, right? Charge. It's just going to have one action, right? They're not going to be that simple because we want to make them a little bit more spicy. But sometimes they'll be that simple, Sometimes we want them to be more spicy. But we're going to have, it's not going to be a thing like this where you have to look at different options and be like, okay, well, this guy's a shooting unit, this guy's a melee unit, oh, this guy's a hybrid unit, okay, use melee, okay, that's what we do. All right. It's not going to be like that. Whoop, 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 whoop. Hello. There we go. All right. So it's not going to be a situation where we're going to have those conditionals, right? We're going to get rid of those. All right. So we have a this is very ugly, but it could very easily be referred to as a wireframe. So our next step now is actually what we need to do is we need to design our data structure for this. Data structure? What do you mean data structure? So when you come here and you click add a unit to make one of these cards, you're essentially adding to a data structure some piece of data, right? And then you're dynamically displaying that data to the user with the website. So we need to outline our data structure. Boom. We're going to make ourselves an array. An array is a zero-indexed data structure. What does that mean? That means that if I want to call cat right here, I will take this data array here, and I will say I will call position 0, right? Because this starts as 0. So 0, 1, 2. So if I want cat, I'm going to call myself 0. The thing about this is that if I reposition cat and dog, so if I do this, dog is now 0. So the conditions for the position is what dictates the index, right? So I have this data array here, and this is actually going to be an array of objects, right? What is an object? An object is a keyed data structure that's not just using the index. So, for example, if I wanted this one to be called cat, and I wanted it to have ID of 1, this way, anytime I called ID 1, right, let's see, you know, if we'd have to wrap this in a loop. That's what we'd have to do. So if I wanted everything with ID of 1, I could wrap it in a loop and then put a conditional and then call that ID of 1, right? So this is going to allow me to identify this at any time. It's also going to mean that if I have a user input of this, it's going to allow users to have the same name. It shouldn't necessarily, users probably shouldn't really do that, but if they want to do that, I'm going to let them. Okay? So we're not using this as an index. I'm sorry, we're not using this as like our key. That will be that guy. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to need the name field, which is user generated. We're going to need an ID field, which is user generated. We're going to need a type field as well. And we could probably actually store that as an int, but it's okay. We'll just store it as a string for now. And we're going to need some booleans. So is it a leader? Right? Is it a psyker? Is it a behemoth? Right? We're going to need, for those like checkboxes that we made, the checkboxes here, we're going to need some kind of boolean to dictate whether or not it is one of those things. All right. What else do we need? The position for these is not important, right? The position is going to be dictated by the index. We're going to redo that index every time we want to generate an action, which is why we have our IDs in here. What else is missing from this? Well, we're going to need a dictation whether or not the unit is alive or not, right? Because we need to know if the unit's going to be in the alive cards or the dead cards. Okay, so we need to know that in some regard in this array, right? Because I need to know which position it's in. Is it displayed up here or is it displayed down here? I do not need to store in this array the Fog of War. That's going to be stored elsewhere in the app itself, right? Because if you want Fog of War or not, that's going to be a toggle that you click when you go to generate an action. It's not going to be tied to the array. It's not going to be tied to the string that you get for export. All right. Ugh. Okay. What else? What else? Is there anything else that needs to go into this? Type we can save as an int as well. If I was worried about data size, I would do that, but I'm just going to save it as a string for now. That's fine. Is there anything else that would need to go into that? We have an ID, we have a name, we have the type, we have the 3 things, and we have whether or not it's alive. I think that's it. I think that's what we're going to have in our data structure for each one of these. Yeah, I think that's it. Sorry, I was thinking, I've got the enemy type toggle here. I like this idea because this would allow us to dictate swarm versus something else. I like this. It's so I want to put this onto the whole team. Why do I want to do that? I feel like if we assign this per unit, which is completely possible, I feel like if we assign this per unit, it is getting too granular for user. I already have to have them pick melee, shooting, or hybrid, and tell me if they're a leader or not. If I have to pick a like independent type for each one, I feel like it's getting just way too granular. So I'd rather have the enemy type be dictated for the entire team. I think that's a better course of action. Yeah, I think that's a better way to do it. But I still want to maintain that because I do want like Tyranids to behave different than like orcs, for example. My brain's running, I'm sorry. I'm running out of energy. So, since my brain is ticking, I'm now like, it's taking up like all of the processing power. Enemy, yeah. Because if we put it on the card, If we put it on the card, it would allow me to assign different actions for this guy versus this guy. I'm sitting here trying to think if that's actually important or not. Right, because if I have like a Ripper Swarm, do I want that to behave different from this Tyrannid Warrior? I probably would, because the Tyrannid Warrior is inherently smarter than a Ripper Swarm. As I see nubs on my poor Tyrannid Warrior here. Alright, let me think about that. Because I think this might be a situation where this actually goes on the card. Yeah, because if we put it on the card, then Ripper Swarms can always behave different. But then it's asking users to make another choice. So then they would have to make a name, declare if it's melee shooting or hybrid, declare the choice, and then whether it's a leader or behemoth psyker. Right, so it's a lot of options. Alright, and what options would be in enemy type? In my brain, this was like, enemy type was essentially like orcs, Tyranids, Space Marines, you know what I mean? Battle Brothers, whatever. In my brain, that's what that was. We could turn it, I guess, into like regular swarms, trained warrior, siege machine, bruiser. Yeah, I think we'll do that. I think we'll do that because if I look at... Okay, so these are jackals, right? For one-page rules. These are, like, fucking amazing. I love these miniatures. These are two different troopers, right? This is essentially the same guy armed with different guns. I want these to behave differently. I want this sniper to stay as far fucking possible away and shoot. And I want this guy to, like, be at mid-range and shoot. Oh, I want these to behave differently. Like, I don't want the sniper to be going for objectives, for example. So, I think we will add it to the data type. So we have type, hybrid, and then we'll call this behavior. And that's going to be... it's going to be a drop down of some kind. Okay, so I think that's going to be the data type for the data setup for every one that we put in. And it will end up looking like that. Weird. My chat is not showing up on this. Oh, weird. Only YouTube showed up today. That's fine. I'm doing pretty good, to answer your question. Doing pretty good. Just getting this figured out, right? Because I went out to dinner with a friend on Friday. And he's like, that's really cool that you're doing that. You should expand it out. I was like, you're right, I should. That would be really neat to, like, have it really be, like, this, like, instead of some silly thing I coded in, like, an hour on stream, you know what I mean? Have it be, like, really something with, like, some teeth to it, That would be really cool. So I decided that, yeah, I would expand it out, and this is my thought process going through everything, right? This is the same kind of design process I would do at work, right? I would do basically review of what's out there, review of what I've done, right? I'd come up with like a mock-up, like a line art like this, and then I would start figuring out the data structures for it, because the data structures are going to dictate what you can and can't do. And this part is super important because of that. And then I would start coding it, which I will probably do this afternoon, but I'm going to probably do that off stream. Because I'm being super honest, I'm really running out of energy. I literally got up like maybe like 3 hours ago, but I legitimately might have to go take a nap. Yay, mental illness. Fun. Fun. Anyway. So yeah, I'm going to start working on this. Hopefully we'll have it done for next week and we can try it out, right? Because the one that I have up right now, this one works pretty good, right? It does the job, but it does have those cons that we talked about, right? It does have the cons here. And it doesn't have these cool additional features, which I think the new one will really add and really allow us to do, which will be sweet. It's something that I think is really good. Yeah. Oof, is what I say. Big oof. Much tired. So tired. Anyway. We did a review. We outlined our data structure. We did a wireframe. We looked at the one I did before. And I think I will go ahead and I will call it there. Because I am just super beat. I gotta wash my dog, and then legitimately I think I might take a nap. Yeah. So that's probably my future. Washing my dog, and then I'll probably take a nap. Yeah. So I will catch you guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this was interesting, and I got a bunch of stuff outlined, which was pretty sweet. And I can start working on it, and hopefully for next week we can have a really, really cool, like a really cool AI generator, right? That's just going to be like the fucking tits, hopefully. So, that'll be really cool. But we'll see, right? We'll see. I should hopefully get it done in time. But I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to call it there because I'm going to go wash my dog while I have a little bit of energy. And then I'm probably going to take a nap. And with that, I'm going to call it there. And I wish you a good one. And thank you for watching. And